Welcome back to the show. Check out these headlines. Super apps replacing banks, a war of wars, and no more escrow for XRP. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on X, YouTube, and digperspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $4.14 trillion market cap for a cryptocurrency. The market is up 0.2%. Bitcoin, 115,700 plus, 4,400 plus for Ethereum. XRP's 298. Now we're off 0.1 on the 24. We're off 2.6 on the 7-day. Let's take a look at the range of price between 297 and 302. You can see the spread is tightening. And usually when things are very tight, XRP will range between a penny or a penny and a half. So this is tightening down. But remember, we still have so many things that are in front of us that are absolutely good news, but we need that fundamental news to complete the cycle. We need the legislation to pass. We need the ETFs approved, right? We need the bank license, the Fed master account. We know these things. But that's why I share that to remind everybody. Plus, you have to remember, not everybody can follow this space every day like the most of you can. So, everybody's working on a different level of knowledge here. So range between 297 and 302, we'll keep an eye on it. Let's start with this. Coinbase CEO explains how Bitcoin gets to $1 million in the next 4.5 years. Take a listen here.
There's a couple of big tailwinds now, which lead me to think that there's a good chance Bitcoin could be at $1 million per coin, by 2030 or so. And that's the relationship between interest rates and stocks. It can always be complex. Like for a long time, people thought these things were positively correlated, and now I think over time people are starting to think of Bitcoin almost like gold or something. It's something people might flee to in times of uncertainty. So it's a hybrid between those two things. But I try not to get too caught up in the short-term trends. What I try to do is look at the long-term trends. And there's a couple of big tailwinds now, which lead me to think that there's a good chance Bitcoin could be at $1 million per coin, by 2030 or so. And that's partly it's the regulatory clarity that's emerging. I mentioned the Genius Act, and now with market structure legislation, hopefully getting close, that could be a major moment. We also saw the United States of America now has a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So if the United States government is going to begin holding Bitcoin, I think that's going to be a massive driver of demand, and the rest of the G20 countries will probably follow suit. And then the last thing I'd say is that we saw recently the launch of the Bitcoin ETFs by a number of different firms, and Coinbase is actually powering 80% of the custody for those that are out there. But we're seeing a ton of institutional money continue to flow into Bitcoin now that these ETFs are live. So there's a lot of positive tailwinds for Bitcoin, and I think that there's never going to be more than 21 million Bitcoin ever made in the world, and lots of pools of capital still haven't gotten access to it. So that tells me this thing.
There you have that. The point is made there. And if they put it in the strategic Bitcoin reserve, watch out, right? And then here, remember when President Trump said this?
Who knows, maybe we'll pay off our $35 trillion, hand them a little crypto check, right? We'll hand them a little Bitcoin and wipe out our $35 trillion.
So, this is why I keep coming back to, you're not just going to acquire Bitcoin and then all of a sudden one day write a $35 trillion check and it not crash the entire market. That's obviously not how it gets done. You got to issue U.S. digital asset bonds, just like treasury bonds, but for digital assets like Bitcoin, XRP, and others. And that's how you pay down the U.S. debt. And that's how the U.S. government would acquire these assets in a neutral way, not costing the taxpayer a dime, but yet revenue sharing with the taxpayer. So, this is a great way. And as the bonds at different rates, whether it's 4-week or a year or 6-month, and then 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, these bonds mature at different rates. As they mature, you can pay down the debt and they still have the asset. So you have to remember, this is a great way right here. And as I've talked with Christian Carlo on stage at XRP Las Vegas, this is coming. Don't believe it. It's still true. And the market is going to be enormous when it does. And the demand for the asset itself will be like you've never seen it before. And Coinbase also sets its sights on replacing banks with crypto super app. And we've talked about this, whether we're talking about X money and X turning into a super app, or Facebook, or any other social media platform, and now exchanges converting their exchange platform experience into more of a social media flow to make it a super app as well. Everyone is getting in the game and trying to get that first mover advantage. And the ones that are smart enough to get it right are going to be the winners. There's no question about it here. So we know that that's what they want to do. And at the same time, look at this. XRP ledger growth continues with over 7 million accounts that are now active. This is amazing. There's 7 million plus accounts for XRP now. And the knowledge, the demand is getting crazy. And it's only going to get crazier as we get legislation, which, by the way, according to Eleanor Tarrant here and other sources, the Senate Democrats say they want to work with Republican colleagues to move forward quickly on bipartisan crypto market structure legislation. Now, a couple things to note here. The previous administration in the left side of the aisle did not have any interest in doing this, but midterm elections are coming, and now all of a sudden they got themselves in line. You see what an election can do? This is what an election can do, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. And then here's the pressure that also exists on a geopolitical level that doesn't allow the left or the right side of the aisle to turn their nose up to the idea of market infrastructure or the Clarity or the Genius Act and all the other necessary bills that need to happen for crypto. And it's in this little clip right here.
What's going on? Now, a couple other threads here. The BRICS are not working on an alternative currency. They are working on an alternative payment system. That payment system is different than a currency. They're working on rails, fiber optic cable, custodians, settlement, clearance, etc., for local currency transactions in rubles and yuan and Brazilian reais and other local currencies, but also dollar transactions. They still transact in dollars. They don't want to transact through a settlement system that the U.S. can interdict. So they've created their own settlement system, their own clearance, their own custodians, etc., which could even have, which could basically be used for any currency.
And there you have it right there. And this is why this issue cannot be put off until 27, 28, or 2030. The world isn't waiting. And the United States as a superpower likes to act like, well, we'll get it, but we have to take our time, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is like they don't have the time. BRICS already has a new payment system. You heard the man tell you right there. Shout out to my brother Will for that clip right there. That was straight fire. And maybe that's why one of the reasons, along with many reasons, why real USD needs to be compliant first for institutions, ladies and gentlemen. That's why that's so important. Because when they do get to a place where all this legislation is law, well, then you're going to see the real demand for all these institutions to deal with digital dollars that are absolutely transparent, they're compliant, and their cross-chain scalability already exists. And we know that with real USD, it's already on Ethereum and the XRP ledger, two chosen networks by the financial community. Jack McDonald really highlights all of that through this article and how they're set up to scalable for cross-border payments. And you guys know the rest of the drill here. But again, setting the stage to have this highly compliant digital dollar that is available as soon as legislation goes through. Look at the timing on all of this. I talked about this yesterday, reminding everybody of the date that Smoke Dog told us all to not forget about, which is November 2025. We're talking just a month or so away here. September's almost gone. Just call it a month and a half, if you will, right? 40 plus days. We got the deadline for ISO 20022, the Big Bang cutover, ladies and gentlemen. It is here. And everyone is going to use it. That's why this is happening. That's why they've been in a co-oping phase for the last few years. This is super exciting to me because everything we've been beat up and told we can't talk about, it's happening. And it's happening now in a very short window. And remember that November 25 deadline for ISO 20022 is around the same deadline to get that banking charter and the Fed master account. It's also around the same time and window that we get the actual Clarity Act passed and the ETFs approved starting in October. We've already got one, right? And then here is a reminder here just how big the market's about to get with all that clarity. Remember, we're already tokenizing U.S. Treasuries on the XRP ledger in conjunction with Ondo Finance and Biddle's BlackRock, right? So, or BlackRock's Biddle Fund. So here you have tokenized Treasuries unlock a $19 trillion opportunity by 2033. So between now and the next 7-8 years, we got 19 trillion that needs to pour into just Treasuries alone. And we already know they're tokenizing on the XRP ledger. It lists it right here, just so I explained. So this is the stuff that gets super exciting to me because all of this is hinging upon getting the Clarity Act passed and signed into law. So again, these things become real factors in real conversations, just like this. Look at what Wisdom Tree says about the supply shock for XRP before Bitcoin even, regardless of Bitcoin's 21 million units. It says for investors, both Bitcoin and XRP are scarce cryptocurrencies with different issuance schedules. Bitcoin should reach its max supply of 21 million units approximately by 2140, and XRP should reach its max supply in the next few years. Afterwards, the number of XRP units will only shrink due to the burning of transaction fees as long as XRP demand grows or even remains the same. XRP scarcity should be positive for XRP price because the burning of a small piece of XRP with every transaction makes the asset deflationary. And that's not something that Bitcoin could ever be. So it's very, very interesting. And Pompeius comes out and says this. Pompeius says this right here. He says, and this is a guy who bought Bitcoin in 2013 and now conquering XRP. So does anyone honestly believe it's a coincidence that Ripple has been sitting down with governments, central banks, and regulators worldwide for over a decade? Ripple isn't just another fintech. XRP isn't just another token. They're laying the rails for the next global financial system right in front of everyone's eyes. The question is not if, but when. This is exactly right. And when you look at the proof in the pudding here, it's a smoke dog post. And what do you say? Ripple's background, XRP, popular crypto in Japan, analysis and performance, right? Well, when you go across all of this, what you really catches my eye here is down at the bottom. Ripple Network is positioned as a key player in the adoption of, ISO 20022, the new global standard for financial messaging. Remember, they were the first member to join the ISO 20022 standard body and committee, soon followed by Stellar. Isn't that something, right? The sister network. So that's why I'm telling you, Ripple's getting that bank license in the Federal Reserve master account because the Federal Reserve's not allowed to issue a CBDC in the new digital on-chain economy. So don't believe it. It's still true. Ripple's getting that banking license in Federal Reserve master account because BRICS really does have a new payment system. And for all we know, we're liable to find out that it's built on a private XRP ledger, right? So there's many factors here that tell me that we're on the right path and it's all feeling good at my house. And then I take a look at it and go, now when they get that banking license in that Federal Reserve master account, Ripple's not free to sell off escrow. Now think about this. Once they get that charter, that banking charter license in the Fed master account, everything could change on a dime when it comes to the escrow schedule and how much they feed out to the ODL exchanges. They could turn and shift and go directly to the institutions if they want to. I'm not saying they're going to. I'm just saying them getting the banking license in the Fed master account could change the approach and how they distribute the XRP itself. So again, the escrow, I don't believe they ever get rid of all of it out into the wild because there's so much power in knowing how to hold it and use it like a monetary system. That's what I've said this for years. The escrow is set up like good monetary policy, right? They buy back XRP at times. They put XRP on the market at times. Just like the same way that oil is controlled in price globally. the same exact way. The same reason I believe that they created the U.S. digital asset stockpile in the executive order, because it's set up to control the price of these digital assets like XRP, just like oil. That's what I'm seeing. And knowing and understanding that NASDAQ, BNY Mellon, Citi, BlackRock, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton, JP Morgan, CME Group, Moody's, State Street, and DBS, and many more will be attending this year's swell in New York, where Wall Street is. And Wall Street is going to be there in a very, very big way. What do you think the demand looks like after post legislation just from these entities that will be attending swell this year? Then we got this, ladies and gentlemen. It's Crypto Bull. I showed it yesterday, and I just love the chart because I love the different bands. You know, we've had everything from $4 to $300 told we could see. It just depends how hard this thing goes. However, I think I've laid out the fundamental news that needs to move the price, whether it goes to $4 or $1 or $500. And the reality is this chart looks nice and clean here, and sky is the limit sitting in front of us. But ladies and gentlemen, we do need Congress to get their job done. And that isn't always a good thing, but I do expect, just like we did with the Genius Act, everything was hunky-dory, and then all of a sudden, oh, we don't know if we can get it done. It might be 27 before we get it done, or 28, right? And then all of a sudden they got it done. And I think you may see a moment like that here with the Clarity Act as well. Hopefully not, but don't be alarmed if you do, because usually that's a moment where they FUD the market for a short period of time and give the institutions one more round of buying on the dip. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one. Our time is now.